Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers, and sorry to kind of break into your day today. I had no plans to come on. I wanted to speak tomorrow, but a lot of actions from the Canadian government have dictated that we must come on today. And I am telling you, ladies and gentlemen, that we are now going to send a very clear message to the American people and their elected representatives. To begin with, I want you to know that the American people, I believe the overwhelming majority of the American people support you, but are now concerned about their own national security as a result of Prime Minister Trudeau's actions. So as of now, it appears that Trudeau has truly advanced a communist agenda. Look, I don't like to throw that word around, but facts are facts. How anyone in that wonderful nation of Canada could back this tyrant is beyond the scope of my imagination. And so today, I believe that we have to address what he's done last night. And then what I believe is probably one of the worst acts of any free nation, to deny bail of an individual who committed no acts of violence, no criminal acts, who was arrested at a protest where he was protesting to support and to defend freedom and liberty. Look, let's just say he was on private property. Let's just say, he violated some small law. All right, you arrest him, you fine him, and you put him out on bail. That's due process. But instead, under communism, folks, and I'm talking to the American people now, under communism, they keep you in prison. Now, is Trudeau going to set up camps and gulags, for goodness sakes? So as you begin to see the process unfold, the process of freedom and liberty unfold in Canada, you better start looking at this flag right here, because somebody in this country might get some crazy idea that if it succeeds there, it may succeed here. Now, you all know in America, they've come after our freedom of speech. They've come after our freedom of religion. They've come after our Second Amendment. They've come after every imaginable right that we have in our Constitution. And when those American politicians and American citizens who say, well, it's not going to get that bad, you better start pointing your eyes north and look at Canada, because there were people in this country, around the world, and in Canada who said it's not going to get that bad. Well, it is that bad. So let's begin with this. It is time for the American people to act, and we can act. We can act with power. We can act with might within the framework of the law. And I'll always emphasize that. And here's what we can do. There is an election year in 2022, right, folks? This is an election year in the United States for Congress. And the Democrats, the liberals, every politician running is on edge. They're looking to seek favor with any imaginable person they can to keep their seats or to get these seats. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do, and do it immediately. Either send a letter, an email, or call your congressional representative and tell them that they need to introduce a resolution that condemns Prime Minister Trudeau's communist actions in Canada. He needs to see a clear, sharp condemnation from a free country just south of him. And it's time we really get up, stand up, and speak out and do what must be done now to protect our border. Think about this. All the concentration has been on the southern border. Joe Biden has ignored it, and God knows what's coming across that border. We don't know what the clear and present danger is south of us. You all know that. We don't know if terrorists are coming across that southern border. We don't know who's coming across the border. But we do know that on our northern border, there is a dictator now in office that is violating every single human right that an individual citizen in his country has. Every single human right, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. My goodness. I mean, to see this happen in a free country is one thing. To see it happen in a free country that's our neighbor, that is simply another thing. And that, folks, places our national security at risk. So as you talk to your congressional office staffer, who will pass your message on to the congressman, I hope. And by the way, folks, go to their public meetings, go to these campaign meetings and put it right to them, because I'm going to do it. I want to know your position as a congressional candidate, as a congressional representative, as a senator, on Prime Minister Trudeau's actions against free people. And don't buy the excuse, well, it's their business, not ours. Well, now it's our business because Trudeau, in my view, and tell this to your congressional representative, has now become a national security risk to the United States. He has, folks. Any elected official, any appointed official, any official sitting in the seat of a government where the people are free and takes the actions that he took is a clear and present danger to freedom and liberty in any country on this earth, but especially in my view, because I live here, my country is it's a country that believes and supports liberty. In my view, this man has become a national security risk to the United States. So that's number one. Let's get that resolution in Congress to condemn Prime Minister Trudeau. And I'll update you folks on whether I hear or see any of these representatives who may have the courage to do this. Secondly, Prime Minister Trudeau should be prohibited from coming into the United States until he explains, and I'd love to hear the explanation, why due process for the individual trucker, I believe he was ahead of the truckers' protest, why he was jailed and not given bail. The judge, I mean, what kind of judge is this? I'd like the judge to explain why and how you define this trucker as a danger to public safety. My goodness, he didn't hit cops. He didn't burn buildings down. I don't believe he did anything out of line other than protest. And if, in fact, he violated a ridiculous law that actually has probably been created to do what your guys are doing out there in the government of Trudeau, how do you define him as a danger? Now, Judge, I don't know who you are, but I'm going to explain something to you. You'd never get away with that in the United States of America. In fact, a ruling like that, it would immediately go into court, and a judge with brains, a judge that understands law, a judge that understands human decency would put this guy out on bail. Absolutely disgraceful. That is not justice. Folks, that is not justice. That is tyranny. That is tyrannical dictatorship. That is coming from Trudeau. So, Judge, like I said, you could be the nicest guy in the world, but I've got to tell you, what you did is a crime, is an absolute crime in itself. And believe me, I just hope, Judge, you think about this and think about where you're leading your country. You made a decision, at least in my view. And by the way, Judge, we can speak out in America without worrying about guys like you and Trudeau coming to knock on our door and say, you know, even your thinking is something that we may have to look at. You see, in America, we're still free, and we aim to stay free. And believe me, we are going to stay free. So Judge Trudeau, we have to call these people out, folks. We have to stand tough and strong in America, and we have to ask our congressional representatives. I am in a letter, and hopefully I'll be able to get that letter together by tomorrow and read it to you. Ask that Trudeau not be allowed to take one step in this country, the land of the free and the home of the brave, until he explains why this man did not have due process. You know, congressional representatives, I know some of you are watching, all right? You know, you all are making a lot of noise about Ukraine. You're making a lot of noise about the southern border. You're making a lot of noise about China. You're making a lot of noise about these communist countries that do not give due process to their citizens, rightfully so. Well, we've got a country north of us, not far, borders us, where due process was not allowed to be given to this trucker. So we need to make sure that at least we make some noise about that. I mean, substantial noise, and take some decisive action against that government just north of us. Because if we don't, it just may happen here. Well, Lieutenant, they say, how could you say that it could happen here? Well, you know, those are the words that were said in Europe back in the 30s and 40s when Adolf Hitler was taking over the government of Germany. Oh, we're going to build Germany. We're going to make it strong. We're going to make it rich again. And he did. And then he used what he built against who? Every single country across Europe, extended as far as Britain was concerned. And then had he defeated Britain, well, he would have destroyed in every way, shape, and form everything he could in the United States. When we let tyrants go unchecked, when they begin to pass laws and take measures against their own people like Trudeau did, we are giving them a green light. We are giving them a green light to march. Maybe, look, I don't believe he's going to send troops to invade the United States. I don't believe any of that. But what he is doing is he's giving the green light to other leaders around the world that when tyrants like him begin to take action against the people of his own country, well, they may be able to do that too. And folks, we've got to stand up and we've got to work within the framework of the law. I've heard from Canadians. I woke up this morning and folks, I got this high pile of emails from Canadians and other people frightened at their government. Could you imagine? Think about this. In America, we're not frightened at our government. We're going to make sure our government is frightened of us. And they need to be scared because we have power. We just got to use it, folks. And I always say, use that power within the framework of the law because they can do nothing to you when you work within the framework of the law. So the power, as I've said, is in creating your neighborhood groups, creating your committees, and start going after them at the polls. Write your letters to the editor. Call TV, radio stations. Yeah, have protests and work within the framework of the law. But more so, we on the outside. Believe me, I understand that a lot of you in Canada are now probably afraid to do that because they threatened, and I think it was the guy's name was Bell, a deputy police chief or an acting police chief. I mean, to tell people, at least it was reported that he told people, we're going to identify you if you were at the protest and we're coming to get you. I mean, who does that? The Chinese Communist Party does that. So we have to call it what it is, folks. And yeah, sometimes you got to stick your neck out a little and you got to say, well, you know what? What are we going to do? Sit back and do nothing? When good men do nothing, evil triumphs, correct? And look, nobody wants to be at war with their own government. Nobody wants to be at war with their own government. They want the government to work well for the people. I saw a man on the news media last night who lives in Canada. And I saw the video, folks, very troubling. A man was protesting. The cops brought him to the ground, kicked him several times in the stomach. The guy was from a former communist bloc country. Now, again, speaking as a police officer, a commander of a police department, a good part of my life, I've got to tell you, those cops that did this to this man, I saw the video, that is clearly police brutality. He was not resisting. And if they were American cops that did that, I would say the same thing. All right, I'm not going to defend. I'll always defend cops who are doing their job. That this man struck those cops, that he roughed them up, that's one thing. But the video doesn't lie. And I'm glad there's an investigation going on. And if those cops did that, they should be arrested and they should be thrown off the police force, as should their chief be. Because when you set up a situation where cops think that they could do that to people that are innocent people that are protesting without any sign of violence, that's wrong. Now, you're hearing it from a cop. So you cops out there in Canada who are viewing in, the people love you. I believe they do because they've said that. And I'm not expecting you to fight your government. I'm not asking you to do that. But when you're deployed, you could use your heads. You don't have to rough people up. You could use your heads. If they resist, well, you arrest them. But you use common sense. I really believe that in many cases, because I've seen no violence of people against the police, the individuals may comply. So you got to think about that. You got to kind of listen to people. You know, you've got the guns, you got the helmets, you got the batons, you got the pepper spray, you got the horses. What are you afraid of? You think some guy 75 years old who's been working his whole life is going to challenge you? Sometimes they do. I get it. For the most part, I haven't seen that happen in Canada. And if it has, well, I haven't seen it. But my point is this. When you deploy police in such a manner that Trudeau did, and you have an emergency act that is clearly in the eyes of a person with common sense, martial law, you're going down a road that is dangerous not only to Canada and the Canadian people, that is clearly dangerous to America and the American people. So we know how our politicians work here. They're afraid of nothing but the vote. They're afraid. They're scared to death. They shudder to think what could happen to them if they don't really listen to the masses of American people that rise up within the framework of the law.